So nice to be here with all of you. I'd like to begin by thanking you for taking your valuable time to be here. All of you sound like such important, potent, powerful, positive, productive, any other P words, people. And you could be doing anything with your time rather than sitting in this small lotus room. I think it's called the lotus room. Um, Underneath the temple in Brooklyn, just above the F line. This is the F train that goes through here.
Actually, the A train.
It's the A train, just above the A train, which you will hear periodically throughout the talk. So, yeah, I'm sure you could be doing so many things. So, I'd like to express my deep gratitude and appreciation to all of you for being here and request that you say a little prayer for me that I can speak something that is relevant and also meaningful and hopefully in line with our teachers so that it, you know, basically when we speak, we want to have some impact, some effect, some positive effect. I've chosen this topic, Touchstone of the Holy Name. Actually, I think the last three talks I've given here have all been about chanting. So one of my um, I guess you could say missions or goals is to improve my own japa, my own chanting specifically, and develop my relationship with the Holy Name. To that end, my wife and I will be leaving in 1 week's time. We're going to back to London. We'll be in the UK. And then we're going to New Mayapur. I don't know if any of you are familiar, which is in France, just in the Loire Valley of France. A beautiful temple there. Srila Prabhupada installed Krishna Balaram deities there. It's only one of, I think, two or three sets, maybe even two sets of Krishna Balaram deities that Prabhupada installed. It's a very beautiful place. We're having a sadhana retreat for a weekend. So one of the focuses is the holy name. So just curious, how many people here are chanting regularly? Okay. And yeah, it's not usually the talk here is to mostly brand new people. That's the idea. But the chanting is something that is most vital and most important. So we're going to tell a little story here today about that. But before I begin, I would like to first chant a few prayers. So if you please indulge me in this. Ever since I was with, some of you may be familiar with Jamuna, Mother Jamuna, who sings the Govinda prayers.
Yes.
Govinda, Adipusha, Tamam Bhajami. So I was very fortunate to have a couple of opportunities to associate with her before she departed from this world.
Wow.
And one of those times we were in London and she was sharing with us how Srila Prabhupada shared with her that before you begin anything, if first you set your consciousness in the correct place. First, we have to put our consciousness in the correct place. The big challenge is often we're very passionate. I can speak for myself. It's like, just want to go. Let's just get it. Okay, what do we got? It's like we don't really. What are we going to do? Being from America originally myself, when I first moved to England about 30 years ago, I had an experience of the British people. And it was that whenever we were deciding to go and do something, before we would go, I'd be like, okay, cool, let's go. We ready? Let's go. And they'd be like, no, 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 relax. Let's have a cup of tea. And it was literally like that. And they'd be like, put the kettle on, mate. And they'd put the electric kettle on, and then they well, and you have and I was like ready to roll out the door. Next thing you know, I'm like sitting there waiting for a kettle to boil and have a cup of tea. Then we sit down, we drink the tea. Next thing you know, it's like 25, 30 minutes has passed. And they're like, okay, now let's go. And I thought, what a strange group of people. We could have left 20 minutes ago. We could have left 30 minutes. But this is the challenge that we have that we're often just in a rush to do things. Anyone here has that experience? Yeah. Then it's like Alice in Wonderland, right? What is that? What was his name? The Mad Hatter. The Mad Hatter who's like, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late for a very important date. Right? He's the one always looking at his watch. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. So anyway, all that to be said simply so that we could chant. Take a moment now to chant a few mantras, a few prayers. And Mother Jamuna, she shared with us that Srila Prabhupada said that if before you begin anything, if you just chant these prayers, if you just chant these mantras, and if you chant them with a sincere heart, then Krishna will hear you and he will help you. And if any of you had the opportunity to associate with Jamuna Devi, she was not a normal person. Even from early on, Srila Prabhupada said that she was already on the level of Baba, which means she was very, very spiritually advanced lady. She was so pure and so potent. So when she said that, it just like hit me right in the heart and it clicked. So I'd like to chant these prayers. If you know them, then you can please join in. If you don't, then my encouragement to you is to just take a deep breath. Try to sit up nice and uh, like our friend here. Erect. Yes, we've got an example. Here's one we prepared earlier. So sit nice and erect. Just take a deep breath and just meditate on the transcendental sound vibration. Om Ganatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So, the topic for the talk today is the touchstone of the holy name, and the Sanskrit term for this is Harinam Chintamani. And we may ask, what is touchstone? Anyone here knows what is touchstone besides Nityananda? Trying to raise his hand to answer all the questions. Anyone knows what touchstone is? Yes, what is a touchstone?
It's a type of mystical stone that could turn any object into gold.
Beautiful, yes.
Also called the Philosopher's Stone.
Also called the Philosopher's Stone, known as Chintamani in Sanskrit. It is a mystical, magical stone that basically is understood in alchemy to be able to transform anything it touches into gold. So just curious, who here would like to have? I mean, if I had a few of them on me, would you be like, sure, Jai, you can share one with me? Anyone? Let's be honest, right? Because they say money is the root of all evil. Anyone's heard that? Money is the root of all evil. But we don't believe that money is the root of all evil. We believe that greed is the root of all evil. Sense. So it's not the money, it's what you do with it, as we were just hearing earlier. Nice to see you again. As we were just hearing earlier, there are some wonderful people who are going out for 26 years feeding the homeless in Tompkins Square Park. So if you have money, you can also do very good things with money. So of course, who wouldn't mind having a touchstone, right? Maybe a couple, but you probably only need one, right? Okay, so this is going to be a little bit of a story around the touchstone. So um, here we have a picture of it kind of looks like you, except he's shaved up. So here we have a picture of a sage or a sadhu, we call a saintly person from India. In actual fact, this saintly person, his name is Sanatan Goswami. So Goswami means one who is, Go means the senses, and Swami means one who can control. So it means one who has learned to control his senses. Anyone here feels like they're a Goswami? Anyone here has learned to control their senses? Yeah. It's not so easy, is it? Especially in the modern day, they say that the weapons now, it used to be nuclear weapons were the way that we were going to destroy the world. Now there are weapons of mass distraction, right? Who here finds themselves with this touchstone spending hours doing this? Anyone? Anyone finds themselves like, oh, I'll just check. Like I do this all the time. I remember I need to look at something in my diary. And then I open it up this screen and I see, oh my God, all these messages. And then I open one, and 20 minutes later, I didn't even look at my diary. I'm just zooming. So it's so easy to become so distracted. So this personality, Sanat Goswami, he is a, a very saintly person who has learned to control his senses so that he doesn't get so easily distracted in life like that. So, so I think we are attempting to create an atmosphere here that is more conducive to sitting in a small room together. So Sanatan Goswami was not an ordinary person. I mean, someone who can control their senses certainly isn't ordinary, right? But he was exceptional because he was able to meet with an extremely special personality named Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya um, is, as we understand, is an avatar or an incarnation of Krishna, who appeared about 530 plus years ago in West Bengal. And he came and he was teaching the art of bhakti. So he was the personality who appeared specifically with the purpose of teaching about the chanting. And Sanatan Goswami was one of his most erudite students. And actually, he spent many days with him learning and studying. And then Sanatan went on to write many books, one of which a group of us are reading at the moment. Anyone here has read the Brihad Bhagavatamrita? Very, very beautiful book. And maybe the next talk I give, we can speak about that because it's such an amazing book and it talks about the journey of a young man and how he meets his guru. He meets his teacher, and his teacher gives him this mantra, and then he starts to chant the mantra, but he doesn't even know really how to chant the mantra because when his guru was giving him the mantra, his guru was on such an elevated level, uh, spiritual practice, that as he was giving him the mantra, he himself was going into states of ecstasy. And then he left. And he said, God, you just gave me the mantra, but you didn't give me all the information about how to chant it, when to chant it, where to chant it. But he remembered the mantra, so he just started chanting like that. So Sanatana Goswami, very special person. Lord Chaitanya spent many, many hours with him, teaching him and guiding him directly. So this this story begins um, with a young man uh, named Gopi, and he is a brahmana, and he's like he's from a priestly class, you could say. His family are very religious, very pious, but generally he's more preoccupied with his worship and his praising of God than he is with making money, right? So therefore, his wife, whose name was Lakshmi, she was kind of like, "Hey, Gopi, I'm really happy that you love God, but it'd be nice to eat. It'd be nice to have a few creature comforts. Do you think that you can figure out how to, you know, get some money?" And Gopi said, "Well, actually, it's interesting because just the other day, I heard that this sadhu, this saintly person, just kind of on the other side of the village, he is in possession of a
Touchstone.
touchstone." Oh, Lakshmi said, "Well, what does the touchstone do?" And he said, "Well, the touchstone can turn anything that you touch into gold." And so Lakshmi was thinking, "Well, that sounds pretty good. Maybe you should go and ask him if we could borrow it for a little while." So before Gopi left, he first went because he was a worshiper of Lord Shiva. Anyone here has heard of Lord Shiva? Yeah. So he used to worship Lord Shiva. And so he went and he prayed to Lord Shiva that, I don't normally go and ask for things from saintly people because he's a priest himself. So you wouldn't normally go to a saintly person and ask them for something usually other than wisdom. But he's going to him to ask him for something. So he began to pray to Lord Shiva. And so he felt that inside, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. Plus, my wife told me to go. You could see if you look at this picture, that's her finger there. And so anyone who's married, when the missus says it's time to go, it's time to go. So you go. So like that. But he took blessings from the Lord and he went on this journey across the town. And of course, in those days, uh, they didn't have cars, they didn't have subways, they didn't have buses. So he was just hiking it across the village, and it was a big village that he had to cross over. So it took him some time. You could see he's got his little uh, food, his lunch, and his little packet there. He's taking with him, and then he showed up at the house of Sanatana Goswami. So it turns out that he was going to see Sanatana Goswami. And so he immediately, first, he offered his respects to Sanatan. He bowed down to him and he began saying, "It is such an honor to be here with you, Sanatan. I've heard so many wonderful things about you, and I know that you're a great saintly person. And, you know, my life I'm trying to also dedicate to the service of God. And he was feeling very humbled to be in the presence of this great personality. And you can see here that Sanatana Goswami raised his hand and touched his head. He gave him blessings. So this is the blessings hand. If you go upstairs and you see that Srimati Radharani is holding out her right hand like this. So she is giving blessings like that. So Sanatana Goswami gave him blessings and then asked him, is there anything that I can do for you? Is there any way that I can serve you? This is the mood of a saintly person. That their first question is, how can I serve you? And so Sanatana Goswami asked Gopi, how can I serve you? And Gopi said, well, I wouldn't normally ask, but my wife Lakshmi, she asked me to come here because, I'm finding it very difficult to get money and do the things I'm supposed to do. And he said, and I heard that you have a Chintamani stone, that you have a touchstone. And I thought maybe I could borrow it for a little while. And Sanat Goswami said, yeah, no problem. The touchstone is just out the back. And he said, out the back? And he said, yeah, there's a garbage heap out the back where I throw some discarded items. And the touchstone is in there. And Gopi was like shocked. What are you talking about? Why is it out there? And he said, anyway, never mind. He said, it's not a problem. You can go take it. You can have it. And he thought, why would he give away this stone so easily? So Gopi went out to the back and he looked in the garbage heap. And lo and behold, there it was. The mystical touchstone. Yes.
Question.
Beautiful.
If the touchstone could make anything like you want into gold, can't the touchstone make you gold? Like touch it and to have it and you immediately get it into a statue of gold.
I guess it could do, but I think the person who's holding it doesn't get turned into gold. It's if their consciousness and intention is when they put it on something, it turns it to gold. So you could probably turn another person into gold.
So you could turn anything like into gold and even another person. So for example, you have the touchstone, and if you like put it on yourself, you could actually go also get into like gold.
I guess so. There's some possibility that can happen. But I
It's on
think
the
as
back
long
of the
as
warning label.
yeah, there's it says, don't touch yourself with this stuff. Danger, you may turn into gold. So I think the idea is that if you're holding it, it doesn't turn you into gold. But if you give it, like if I gave it to you, and I wouldn't be holding it anymore, but you would pick it up, and then you touch me, then I would turn into gold. But you'd be okay. Yeah.
I'm never going to do that to another person. Even if he like made something maybe even mad.
Yeah. Sounds like you were brought up very good. So Gopi finds the touchstone. Where did he find the touchstone?
The garbage.
In the garbage. It was in the garbage. And he took it and he touched something. And immediately it turned into gold. And he thought, it works. Oh my God, this is great. And he thought, wow. So he went back and he thanked Sanatan. And he said, are you sure that I can take this touchstone? And he said, absolutely, no problem. It's on the garbage heap. I don't need it. I don't want it. He's fine. And so he took it home and he gave it to his wife, and immediately she started going around the kitchen turning everything into gold. Yay! Problem solved, right? So then they were discussing about this, and she was asking, why would Sanatan give this to you so easily? Look, everything in our house now has become gold. We're basically rich, inconceivably rich. Why would Sanatan give it to you so easily? And he said, it was on a pile of garbage. And she said, wait a minute. If this stone was on a pile of garbage, that must mean he has something even more valuable than the Chintamani stone. And Gopi said, maybe you're right. And he said, I think that you should go back and visit your friend Sanatan and offer to give him back the stone in exchange for Michael. No, in exchange for for whatever it is that he may have that is more valuable. And so they were discussing like this. And then Gopi took another trip to see Sanatan. And he came and he placed the stone before him. And he said, my dear Sanatan, thank you so much. You gave me this valuable stone. It was amazing. We turned so many things to gold. But we were thinking, why would you put this in the trash? Why would you put this with the garbage? And why would you give it to me so easily? He said, I think you are in possession of something even more valuable than this Chintamani stone. And Sanatan said, you're absolutely correct. I am. And he said, oh, well, would you be willing to give that to me? And he said, absolutely. No problem. I'll happily give it to you on one condition. And he said, yeah, what is that condition? And he said, you have to take that stone and put it back on the garbage pile. And he was thinking, He said, and once you put it back, you can't take it back again. So it's like, let's make a deal. So,
Behind door number
one, or do you want the envelope? Do you want the touchstone or what might be behind door number one? So what do you think Gopi did? What would you do?
I think hey, the Gopi put this touchstone back to its place where it's the trash and garbage.
Okay.
And he also made the garbage gold because if touchstone makes everything gold, so by logic you should make the garbage also golden.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to have to read up on this because I think there must be some specific mantras you have to chant.
Yeah, that's what I would. And also, probably will only work on animate objects.
Inanimate objects.
Yeah, humans.
Okay. Have you ever heard the story of the Midas touch? It's a very similar story. Nice to see you. Welcome.
Midas touch like magic.
Yeah. Yeah, the gift to turn anything he touches into gold.
Right.
They just left out the part about the stone. So Gopi said, I don't know what I should do. Sanatan, what should I do? Okay. He said, fine, I'll put the stone back in the garbage. So he went and put the stone back in the garbage, and he came back to see Sanatan Goswami. And Sanatan Goswami was really pleased with him because he had accepted that there must be something higher, and he was willing to let go of something that apparently was lesser, but also seemed to be of very great value. So Sanatan Goswami, being a renunciant, he was very impressed and inspired by his renunciation, even though he knew that his renunciation was slightly motivated. But he was still very pleased with him. And so he said to Gopi, are you ready to receive what I have to give that is much more valuable than that Chintamani stone? And he said, yes, 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 please, please, give it to me. And he said, "Come closer." And he asked him to lean in. And he whispered something in his ear. And as soon as he whispered it into his ear, Gopi immediately like woke up. You know, there's a phrase, Jeev Jago, wake up, sleeping soul. So sometimes we're walking around in the world and it seems like we're conscious, but we're actually very much asleep. So when he whispered into Gopi's ear, immediately Gopi woke up and he whispered this mantra into his ear. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And one could say on the spot that Gopi was initiated into the chanting of the mantra. He was given Harinam initiation. It was the first time he was experiencing this mantra. And because he was receiving it from someone who was pure in heart and someone who had been chanting it purely without any motive, as soon as he heard it, as soon as it went into his ear, it began to purify his heart. And he just woke up with such joy to hearing this mantra that he felt like, wow, I have received such a valuable thing. And then he immediately began dancing and chanting and singing. And then he danced and chanted and sang all the way home, where he met with his wife. And what do you think his wife said? What do you think she said?
I think she said that like you may not like get information, but something more valuable. Like for example, something that makes anything like a diamonds or something,
Okay.
but not just like some information or mantra.
Okay. So not just some information like
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
And she was very mad at him.
Okay. Who agrees? Sorry, your name again is
That's sweet.
Natalie. Who agrees with Natalie? Okay. All the ladies in the room, what do you think if your husband came home after having a touchstone that could turn things into gold, and then he went back and he comes home and she says, "What have you got?" And he says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. What do you think she would say? Yeah. Back, go get the stone out of the cage. But it is described that actually at first she was a little perturbed. But then she started to chant also. And then after they started chanting, they were chanting together. Then again, this thing happened within the heart that something woke up for her also. And they realized that actually what I'm experiencing now through this chanting is incomparable to whatever I felt when all my kitchen items were turned into gold. Like now I feel such a connectedness and such a peacefulness, such a worth in the world that this value, this self value, is so much more precious than that Chintamani stone. And then they both felt so satisfied in each other's company, and they felt satisfied with what they already had. Of course, they had all their kitchen items, which were gold, but that's not the point. They had actually found something that made them complete. I'll tell you a little story. There was, maybe I won't tell the story. Okay, I'll tell the story. So when I was a little kid, I have a brother. He's about 2.5 years younger than me. We went to a. My father took us to a WWF wrestling. Yeah, I wasn't going to tell the story because I was embarrassed. No, I'm kidding. So we went to this big coliseum where this match was on. We watched a couple of matches, and then in the intermission, we were out in the crowd in the audience trying to get something to eat or drink or whatever. And I was on one side of my father, and my brother was on the other side. And he was holding our hands very tightly as we were walking through this big crowd of people. And it was so thick and so dense that, all my brother and I could really see is like kneecaps, of all these tall adults and people. And I was looking across and I could see my brother over there, and I was on this side, and we were both holding onto my father's hands. And then there was this interesting point where the crowd became so intense that as I was looking at my brother, I saw his hand slip out of my father's hand. And I mean, we were only young. I must have been maybe at the most 8 or 9. And I still have never forgotten it to this day. And in that moment, I looked into my brother's eyes and I saw, what do you think I saw?
Terror.
Fear. And then I felt something. I felt the fear in my father as his hand grabbed, tightened on my hand. And then I watched as my brother disappeared into the crowd. And it just happened like that. And then something very interesting happened. My father, holding my hand very, very tightly, he started to move people out of the way, and he was calling my brother's name. And he was moving people. And it was so noisy, and there were so many people, and he was basically dragging me. And it seemed like this went on for like 3 or 4 minutes, which isn't a long time, but in that situation, it was enough for me to feel complete anxiety and feel the anxiety of my father. And then eventually, my father finally moved someone and he saw my brother. And what do you think he was doing?
I think he just like grabbed
He was
his hand.
crying. He was crying intensely, like crying, like tears were pouring out of his eyes. And he was so scared. He was so frightened. And there was this moment when he looked up and he saw my father, and my father reached down to him, and he reached up to my father, and their hands connected. And as soon as their hands connected, my brother stopped crying, and my father's other hand that was holding mine so tight relaxed. And in that moment, it was like a connection of shelter, a connection of safety. It was like home. It was like you're safe. And my brother stopped crying. My father pulled him closer to him, pulled me closer, and we were all kind of a little traumatized by the situation, but it's something that I never forgot. And then many years later, I was in Rome, in Italy, many years later, and I went into the Sistine Chapel. Anyone here has ever been to the Sistine Chapel? And when I went into the Sistine Chapel, I looked up at the ceiling and I saw a painting on the ceiling. It's a famous painting
Yeah.
of God reaching down to Adam and connecting and taking his hand. And I thought, oh, and I was reminded. And then years later, when I connected with the devotees of Krishna and I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, and someone introduced me to the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. I started chanting and I felt something inside of me wake up. And all of a sudden, after years of working in the corporate world, earning money, trying to do so many things to find happiness, trying to turn everything that I touched into gold, I realized that actually this holy name is so powerful. I felt like I had connected, reconnected with something. And I didn't know what, but I knew that I felt safe. I knew that I felt at home. I knew that I had found shelter. And I felt complete. For the first time in my life, I felt like a completeness, a wholeness. And so this is what Gopi and Lakshmi felt. And they just weren't so bothered about all the things that seemed to be a botheration before. Because happiness doesn't come from outside, happiness comes from inside. As some people say, it's an inside job. Happiness is an inside job. So it's something we have to work on here. We're never going to find anything outside that makes us happy. You'll only find the happiness outside when you already find it in here. So that's why all the sages and sadhus, they talk about how we have to work on ourselves. We have to find ourselves. We have to connect with something. So like this. So Sanatana Goswami, whom here you can see as he's writing, if you can see closely, that there are tears pouring down his cheeks. Because he's so connected. He's so connected, and his purpose is simply to try to share with everyone else this connectedness, because he's found the most precious jewel, the most precious thing. He's found it, and he just wants to share it with others. But most people he meets, they just want the touchstone on the garbage pile. And he's like, take it, have it. I don't need it. I don't even want it. So Sanatana Goswami, or rather Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this is quoted in a book about Lord Chaitanya. Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shudam Nitya Mukta Vinatva Nama Namino. In the translation, the holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. So the holy name of Krishna is non-different from that supreme person. The name and Krishna and God are non-different. And God is the reservoir of all pleasure. So when you connect with the reservoir of all pleasure, the reservoir means like the great ocean, the great lake, then what need is there for a thimble full of pleasure? It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities, there is no question of its being involved with Maya, or the illusory energy. Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. So there's a description and another story where a man goes to a house and he sees that somehow the family has allowed a small child to be playing with this very valuable diamond. You mentioned diamonds earlier, like it's a big diamond. And the child is just sitting on the floor banging the diamond on top of the other toys. And this man is thinking, you have such a valuable jewel and you've given it to your child, and they have no idea of its value. And so it's like that. Often we're given this valuable thing and we don't realize how valuable it is. So, those of us who are already chanting, when you put your hand in the bead bag next time, right? For those of you who don't know, we like to chant all beads. There's some there. So these are the beads, and we chant this mantra on beads. And the beads generally are made of tulsi wood, which is very sacred. So everything, the touch to the tulsi, the sound, vibration, all of it is simply so that we can try to make that powerful connection, that spiritual connection. The material world is dragging us perpetually, distracting us in so many ways. Just walking from the station to here is like sometimes walking 1,000 miles because there's so many distractions. You get on the train, so many distractions. Everywhere there's distractions. The material energy is perpetually pulling us, pulling us. Maya is so powerful. So this illusory potency is perpetually trying to bewilder us. So this chanting is our opportunity in this age of Kali, this age of quarrel, this age of hypocrisy and confusion. This is our means and our opportunity to reconnect ourselves as spirit souls with the Supreme, with Krishna, with God. And this process is so potent and so powerful, and it is so valuable that it is known as Harinam Chintamani, the touchstone of the holy name. Hari is a name for God, for Krishna. And Nama means name. So many words in Sanskrit relate directly to English words. So Nam and name are the same. So like this. So our host has disappeared, which means I can do whatever I like. Lock the door. So I would like to invite everyone to if you don't have any beads, to take some beads, and we're going to chant together. Is everyone, if you don't feel comfortable with that, that's also fine, no problem. But if you would like to try, then please, I encourage you to take some beads. Maybe someone can pass them out. Would you, maybe she could pass them? Would you like to do? Okay. Would you like to take them around and see if anyone wants some beads? Please, thank you. So we're going to chant the same mantra that was given to Gopi and Lakshmi. Beautiful, wonderful. So a little introduction to the beads. So the beads are a special paraphernalia. Um, so we usually try to, because they're considered sacred, we usually try to keep them off the floor, which is why we put them in a bag that kind of keeps them clean and safe and sheltered. So if you hold it up, you'll find one bead looks like this. Kind of looks like a funny one of those. I don't know if anyone remembers those little trolls that used to have the funny hair and used to go like that. No, okay. So kind of looks like that. But this is called the head bead or the Krishna bead. And this bead you don't chant on. This bead you don't chant on. It's a marker bead that shows from one side to the other. And so we chant, and not all the beads are the same. I think the beads that you're getting handed out are all more or less the same size. You can see mine are larger on one side and smaller on the other. So I always start large. I always start with the big side. And you hold the beads in your hands like this. So between the thumb and the middle finger. And usually we keep this finger here off of the beads. This finger is known as the ahankara finger. This is the ahankara finger. And what does that mean? It means this is the finger that comes out when you want to tell someone that they did you wrong, you want to point blame, right? Anyone has this? I'm sure none of you here ever have done that. You've never pointed a finger at someone else. You should be careful. Srila Prabhupada said when you point one finger at someone else, you have to be very careful because there's always three fingers pointing back at you. So we should be very careful. So this finger is known as the ahankara finger, or ahankara means the ego or false ego finger. It's the bossy finger, the bossy boots finger. So we keep this off, and that forms a sort of mudra, right? So there are things called mudras where you touch fingers, certain fingers together, so like that. So we keep that off, and we hold the beads between these two. And then on each bead, we chant this mantra. And then you move to the next bead. And I chant where you pull the beads to you. And the meditation is that I'm also trying to pull Krishna towards me. Come, Krishna. I'm pulling Krishna. Or I'm pulling myself towards Krishna. So then you move the beads like this, and they move, and what you can see is a clockwise direction. So the beads are moving like that until you go all the way around and you come back to the head bead again. And you chant the mantra on the last bead. And that is what is called one round. Means that you've gone around the beads once. I had a friend and generally we try to chant however many rounds you can, but as you progress, we try to chant at least 16 rounds a day. Now, in the beginning, usually it can take 10 to 15 minutes to chant one round. So chanting 16 takes a long time. But as you chant more and more, it becomes a little faster. Most devotees chant 16 rounds within an hour and a half to 2 hours at the most. But that's still a lot of time. I told a friend of mine, hey, nice to see you. I told a very good friend of mine who works in the corporate, I told him that after I quit the corporate world and became a monk and moved into the temple, he asked me, what do you do all day? And I said, well, I chant for about 2 hours every day. And he was like, 2 hours every day? That's 14 hours a week. You know how much money we used to make in 14 hours? Mm-hmm. And I thought, yeah, but this is priceless. You can't put a price on this. So anyway, one friend I knew, he was chanting and he was having trouble. He was saying to me, I don't know how you guys chant 16 rounds in 2 hours. It takes me almost 4. And I said, it's okay. Just keep going. It'll take time. And then one day we were all chanting together and we chanted all the way around and we chanted one round and we stopped. And he said, why did you stop? And I said, because we finished a round. He said, no, a round means you start here, you go around, and you come back. And I said, that's 2 rounds. And he went, oh my God. And I said, that means you've been chanting 32 rounds every day for like 3 months. And he said, I said, just keep doing it. He said, no way, from tomorrow I'm only chanting. So anyway, sometimes ignorance is a good thing. So anyway, so who would like to try some chanting? Anyone is up for it? Okay, since Nityananda has disappeared, we can do it. So we're going to try. You can find the place where you start holding the beads like this. And we can all just chant together in unison. And we might not have time to, how much time do we have? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
We're overtime. Right?
We're over. Yeah, I always do this every time. Those who are here, they know.
It's okay though.
So we're just going to chant for 4 minutes, okay? But I want these 4 minutes to count, okay? So hold the beads, and we'll all chant together for this mantra in unison. Okay, so before I'll just chant a little mantra called the Panchatapa mantra. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhattacharya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Last one. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hariram Prabhu Ki Jai, Hariram Chintamani Ki Jai. So for those of you who don't have beads, I think if you would like to take a set of beads and give a donation, yeah, then you can do that someday for the gift. But we encourage you to please chant uh, and make this part of your daily practice. I like to do something called the Hare Krishna Challenge, which I was invited to do many years ago. And that is that just for 1 month, chant 1 round every day. No charge, no cost, no loss or diminution. Just try it for 1 month. We try so many things. So just try for 1 month the chanting. If at the end of the month it doesn't work for you, then there's a money back guarantee. Bring the beads back. No problem. But if after a month you're thinking, oh, this is quite nice, then keep chanting. And then for the next month, you can try 2 rounds every day for 30 days. So like that. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. I don't know if we're kind of short on time, so we can maybe do questions afterwards or something like that, like during prasad.
Yeah.
Actually, Prabhu, if you do mind if I make a quick announcement, which is completely relevant to our subject today.
I'm not in charge. She's in charge.
Yeah, it's a Bhakti school announcement.
Yeah.
So I've been recently asked by the Bhakti school to start a Japa Sangha.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so it's gonna be once a month on every Saturday. So once a month on Saturday, 10 a.m. So we're all gonna get together and chant together as a group, because the Maha Mantra means the most powerful mantra. It has unlimited potency and potential. However, just like chanting any other mantra, the biggest challenge is it's hard to be attentive when we chant. And the more attentive you are, the more potency you can experience. So we're gonna get together, start with an affirmation, and just kind of chant as a group for like an hour. And at the end, we'll share experience and realization together. And that could help you to snap your mind onto the sound instead of the mind just go crazy. So we're gonna announce the start date. It's gonna start in a few weeks, and we'll let you know. But I just want everybody to know that.